The objective of Operation Sindoor was to deter Pakistan from its proxy war into India. Unfortunately, the opposite happened. As a consequence of this operation, Pakistan was not deterred, but India is deterred. And because of that, the initiative has passed on completely into the hands of Pakistan's now powerful Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir, who alone will determine the need and scale for proxy war across India and a likely hot war, a war of decision between India and Pakistan. Now, this situation has come about because of four big factors that I want to discuss in some details, but very briefly, these four factors are: number one, that the two adversaries have realized that whenever there is a BJP government in power in India, it simply lacks the political will to fight. The second factor is, now it is well known that President Trump is unhappy with Prime Minister Modi. And what we should expect now is, in any future crisis, clash, conflict or hot war between India and Pakistan, the Trump administration will support Pakistan fully. It will not support India. And this has implications which I'll discuss. The third factor is, we saw in Operation Sindoor that China supported Pakistan to the hilt with its non-kinetic capabilities in what was a one-front reinforced war faced by India, and I spoke about this. Now what we will see is all that will happen and much more. So much that the nature and character of war will change. I'll explain this as I go along in my narrative, and for the first time in the next crisis we will see the Pakistan military combating at the operational level of war, something that it has not done in any operation or war in previous years with India. In all the wars that the two countries have fought, they both have had same doctrines, and they both have fought at the tactical level, which was about battles, which was about attrition, where the two armies or the land forces, they had a key role to play. It will not be there in the next war, where I will explain how the Pakistan military will fight not at the tactical but at the operational level, at the much higher level of war. Now, and the fourth reason is that despite India having assessed PLA as its main military threat, and the PLA having been on Indian territory in East Ladakh since April 2020, unfortunately, even today, India's senior most military officer, Chief of Defence Staff Anil Chauhan, does not seem to understand the war that the Indian military needs to prepare against, and I will talk all these issues in some details now. Let's start with lack of India's political will. Now, the two adversaries saw in Operation Parakram, which was done by the Vajpayee government. The operation was initiated by the Prime Minister, by the Vajpayee government, but it was not taken to its logical end. And we've seen the same thing during Prime Minister Modi's tenure. There have been many crises between India and Pakistan, between India crisis with Pakistan as well as China. For example, there was this 2016 so-called surgical strike against Pakistan, 2017 Doklam crisis against China, 2019 Balakot attacks against Pakistan, and then we had Operation Sindoor in May 2025. All these operations were initiated by India, but none was taken to its logical conclusion because the political leadership simply did not show the stomach for the fight. And this the adversaries know, and this has obvious implications. Now let me talk about the second thing that I said, that in case of a crisis or a war between India and Pakistan, the Americans will support Pakistan. Let me start by explaining or looking at the voluminous report written by a distinguished panel of Americans for the US Congress in 2025, where it mentioned the 4-day clash between India and Pakistan in May of 2025, and This was as a consequence of the Pahalgam attack, where 26 civilians were massacred by terrorists. And yet, this report talks about an insurgent attack that happened in Pahalgam. Now, the implication of this is very simple, that Trump administration will not blame Pakistan in any future crisis, whatever it may do. Next, the same report talks of that in the 4-day clash, the Pakistan military had success over Indian military. Well, this is for the first time that the Americans or the Westerners, especially the Americans, they have assessed that Pakistan military is conventionally stronger than the Indian military. Since 1971, this has happened for the first time. Because in the 1971 war, where India created Bangladesh, a new nation, it was well understood that because India has a much larger army than the Pakistan army, its conventional forces are larger, so therefore it is superior to the Pakistan military. So that thinking has been destroyed, it has been shattered as far as the Americans are concerned, and it is written very clearly in this report. Next, the report talks about, and I am quoting from the report, that China helped Pakistan with live inputs on Indian military positions throughout the crisis. So this is both acceptance of the fact that the PLA was helping Pakistan with its space capabilities throughout the crisis, and also a given by the American side that in a future crisis they'll have no problem with the PLA supporting Pakistan with its non-kinetic capabilities. So what we should be looking at is, we know that the PLA in its second set of reforms under President Xi Jinping that happened in April of 2024, it has created two new organizations which are relevant to my discussion, and these two are Aerospace Force, which is about its space capabilities, and Cyberspace Force, which is about its cyber capabilities, as two independent arms which report directly at the highest level, which is the Central Military Commission. So what we will see is that the Aerospace Force, which is the arm, which this will be available to the Pakistan military fully in case of another crisis or a war with India. So what this means is, besides other things, when we talk of the non-kinetic capabilities of this Aerospace Force, surveillance will be available to the Pakistan military round the clock, provided by the Beidou constellation of the Chinese, which is state-of-the-art constellation satellites. Then the accurate missile targeting will be available to the Pakistan side because of the capabilities, aerospace capabilities, which will be provided by China. And then this Aerospace Force has the capability to dislodge, disorient and disable through out of orbit, through non-kinetic capabilities, India's limited satellites, which will be available or which should be available to the Indian military in war. So the Americans will not have problem with any of this. Now the next is that President Trump will not take on any mediation role between India and Pakistan in a future crisis. It is well known that whenever there has been a problem or a crisis between India and Pakistan, both sides have sought at different timings mediation or help from America to ease tensions between the two. For example, in Operation Parakram, the Bajpayee government sought the help of Americans. The NSA of the time, Brijesh Mishra, had reached out to his American counterpart, Condoleezza Rice, which then helped in ease tensions between India and Pakistan. And there is enough evidence to support that the Trump administration helped the Modi government in bringing a ceasefire between India and Pakistan in Operation Sindoor, but this credit is being given to President Trump by the Modi government. Now, when I talk of the evidence is very clear that on 8th of May, which is the day after the air attacks happened, on the night of 6th 7th May, a press release came from the Indian embassy in Washington that India's NSA Doval had got in touch with his American counterpart Marco Rubio. Now, why do you get in touch? You get in touch because you want help, you want mediation from the Americans. But the Indian side denies this. Then we also know that on 10th of May, it is President Trump who was the first one to put on his social media that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. It was only later on the day that India's Foreign Secretary, he said that yes, a ceasefire had been reached between India and Pakistan, but this credit was not given of the ceasefire to President Trump. And just 2 days back, we have seen that Ricky Gill, who is a senior American, he's an official with the National Security Council of America. He's been given an award by his boss, Marco Rubio. And this award is because Ricky Gill has played a role in mediation in bringing about a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And it is very obvious why the Modi government does not want to give credit to President Trump, because it is felt in India that if this credit is given, it would show the Prime Minister not as a strong leader who can take on the challenge of Pakistan all by himself. Now, there are implications of this. And one of the implications, a big implication, is that the Indian military should not expect the GPS to be available to it in its next crisis or conflict with Pakistan. It may be switched off. Now think of this scenario where the GPS is not available to the Indian military and the PLA aerospace arm is doing its job. A job of dislodging the Indian satellites from their orbits through non-kinetic capabilities. Now, without space capabilities, one can well imagine the accuracy of the Indian missiles, accuracy which was shown in Operation Sindoor. It will not be there in the next crisis. Then, rest be assured that President Trump, who has remained restrained while he has spoken about having brought the ceasefire between the two countries more than 60 times, he has spoken about 7 jets being downed, but he has been restrained in saying which countries' fighter jets were shot down on the night of 6th 7th May. So expect President Trump in the next crisis to say that also publicly and repeatedly. And here is another thing. Just 2 or 3 days back, a report came that the Americans have agreed to give or will be giving a $686 million military package to Pakistan for the sustenance and upgrade of the F-16s which are there with the Pakistan Air Force. Implication is very simple, that on the one hand, the Americans are helping Pakistan upgrade the F-16s with them, and on the other hand, knowing fully well that the F-16s will be used by the Pakistan Air Force against the Indian military, they seem to have no objection to that at all. So these are some of the implications that I wanted to put on the table, which have happened, which will happen with America as a consequence of Operation Sindoor. Now, let me come to China's support to Pakistan. Just 2 days back, a report came in the Hindu newspaper that Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, when he was addressing a forum on international situation and China's foreign policy, he spoke about China having a mediatory role in bringing the tensions down between India and Pakistan in 2025. Obviously, the reference was to Operation Sindoor. And I believe Wang Yi in what he has said, because it is well known that after India removed 370 from Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan has been seeking, amongst other things, advice of the Chinese on all matters pertaining to the India and Indian military. And we also know that Xi Jinping had advised the then Army Chief General Bajwa to focus on development and not so much on security. And we know that the security was being taken care of Xi Jinping.